High schoolers of Reddit, what is the biggest oh shuts about to go down moment that you have experienced with either students, teachers, or even both? Officers of discipline in my high school let 2 students box, literally with boxing gloves, atop the quadrangle stage. The officers, among them being teachers too, did that to let the kids settle their little fight beforehand. These officers tasked other students to film it, so the students did. These officers also tasked them to upload it on Facebook. Needless to say, it made the national news. My dad grew up in South America, and whenever there was a fight the pet teacher would give the kids gloves and have them go at it. After that he'd make them shake hands and move on. Grew up in Ohio. Same story, only thing I would like to add was that the pet teacher was a WWII vet. Your ring name is the Allies and your ring name is the Axis. When it's gang wars it's, in this corner we have Hitler, Hirohito, and Mussolini, and in the other corner Churchill, Roosevelt, and Stalin. Not currently in, but we had fights all the time. The resource security officer jumped on a lunch table, stepped on 2 kids' lunch trays, and launched himself at one of the kids about to sock another kid in the jaw. Everyone went down on the floor and the officer had to wrestle the instigator off the other kid. A food fight started amid this due to the 2 lunch trays that were stepped on flying off the table and hitting another kid in the back. It was pure comedy that a script writer couldn't have written better. I saw a school principal stop a fight with her face. They had problems with gags and bullies, and it was really bad. This one big girl was beating up smaller girls from a different neighborhood. The big girl had an that girl cornered at the bottom of a stairwell and the principal rushed in and took the blow. It was hard and her face started swelling. She said that they couldn't call the police for fighting among students, but they could if a kid hit staff. Not currently in high school, but when I was a freshman there were a few before moving schools. Topping the list was definitely when a kid wouldn't take his hat off his head, so a screaming match started. Teacher takes hat off of kid. Kid throws a chair at the teacher. Teacher puts hat in microwave and turns it on. Kid dumps deer urine on teacher. This was in South Carolina, and he had plans to go hunting that evening. Not just carrying around deer piss. Anyways, that teacher was put on leave during a lawsuit, and the temp teacher was a family/friend who cheated on her husband and was going through a divorce. Her son was also in the club, but that made things interesting. Regardless of whether he was going hunting or not, he was technically just carrying around deer piss. He wasn't just carrying it around, he was carrying it with intent. Carries deer urine with malicious intent. Illegal possession of ungulated byproducts. We had a legitimate food fight in 8th grade. I remember the rumors being spread, and then the girls standing up on the table and yelling food fight. The moment the first few people started throwing food was the moment I knew shit was going down. We had to eat lunch in club rooms in complete silence for the rest of the year. All field trips cancelled. Worth it. I tried starting a food fight in 1st grade by throwing a banana across the lunchroom. It didn't work. I just imagine a 6-year-old throwing a banana while yelling food fight. And for a second the room's quiet, but everyone just goes back to talking about Beyblades. Oof. I'm having physical, mental and physic damage. I was in one of the clubs that had all the bad kids, the ones that always talk and piss off the teacher and never get their work done. One day teacher had already had a bad day and those kids were extra rowdy, and teacher snapped. He smacked a metal ruler down on his desk so loud the entire club went silent. Started cursing us out and got his code red box down off the shelf and kept it open on his lap the rest of club and kicked 4 kids out. Code red box was significant because he was an ex-marine who told us he was allowed/certified to have a gun on campus and alluded to the fact that it was in that box but didn't explicitly say it. That's what terrified us. Turns out he was bullshitting about the gun to get us to shut up. He actually had bear spray and a large metal pipe in there. He had respect for the rest of the year. That doesn't sound like respect, more like fear. It was a bit of both. When he was ranting he brought up some good points and kids stopped being holes to him just because he was trying to do his job. A kid got another kid's girlfriend pregnant without their knowledge. Kid thinks he can keep it a secret. Girlfriend rats him out. The next day at school everyone hears screaming coming from the hallway before the first bell rang. This kid got beaten to a pulp, got his jaw broken, and broke his nose. It took 4 security guards to restrain the enraged boyfriend from beating the shit out of this kid. The girlfriend stood there and had an expression of WTF on her face. What the actual duck? What country do you live in where you have any security guards at your school? Shut. They're everywhere in American schools. Many high schools have uniformed police officers permanently stationed at the school. They get an office and everything. Mine had a whole full-time security force. They had a car and everything, and a full-time police resource officer. America never fails to amaze me. It's the media that shapes America. This started back in the 80s. I was a kid back then, but I remember this movie Colors came out. It was about gangs in Los Angeles, and unlike Warriors, which came out a decade before, it depicted the ultra-violent Los Angeles gangs, the Bloods and Crips. Before that my town had zero problems with gangs. After that every little wannabe gangster was a Blood or a Crip, which led to more violence, including some school violence, as the people who were most influenced by the movie were of course teenagers. Then the news media started focusing on it, even though statistically schools were not much more violent than they've ever been. Every little thing that happened in a school started getting reported on the local TV news. This made parents at least perceive that schools were becoming insanely violent. So they of course demand politicians do something about it, which led to full-time police officers being stationed in schools. By the time I got there, the gang fad, and at least in my town it was just a fad, had calmed down. My HS was still ghetto, and we of course still fight unrelated to gangs. But it really wasn't that bad. Still, we had 3 uniformed full-time cops with guns roaming the halls. There was a fist fight in the snow one year, and at one point one guy got his shirt ripped. So he stopped the fight to take his shirt off and handed it to one of us to hold, so it wasn't just sitting in a pile of snow. As that was happening, the other dude punched him in the back of the head. Ripped Shirt responded by whipping out a knife just to end the fight, because the other guy basically fought with no honor. The head puncher ran away. Soon came back with a big butt friend and they started chucking nearby firewood at No Shirt until he biked off. The rest of us were dying laughing the whole time because it was silly how much it escalated. I was late to pull butt, but I just pointed out the window at where we were and said, "Oh sorry, there was a knife fight," and fell into the lesson with everyone in shock. If I make no shirt I'm dead. Right? Perfect naming skills here. Our dean of students, the disciplinarian, was a former Marine, and one day 2 dudes started fighting in the cafeteria and he vaulted over one of those old school long cafeteria tables to get to them and break them up. The caf went silent when he did, lol. Damn. I love former Marine stories. So funny. One of my teachers was a Marine last year. We made him mad once, and he terrified us. Our JROTC had an ex-army colonel in charge, who was best friends with my Marine teacher. 2 kids were fighting, and refused to stop. So the colonel choked them both out before the school resource officers got there. My drum band conductor was 70Y/OX Navy turned ambulance driver. I swear to God, drum practice always felt like a ducking drill session. You just got singled out and yelled at for 10 minutes if you missed as much as one ducking note, or if you played mezzo forte instead of mezzo piano. I can't imagine being able to pick out the 114Y/O kid jamming just a tad too loudly. I was in that band for //13 years and eventually got to know the dude pretty well. Went to his funeral last year. Cheers for making me remember him. He was cool. Not saying 10 minutes of yelling is right, but there is a but if difference between mezzo forte and mezzo piano. My school had the usual cliques. There were the smokers, the jocks, the nerds, and then a big mix of just everyone else. One day the smokers from my school and the smokers from the high school across the street started arguing. These arguments went on for a few weeks, basically about smoking territory or some shit. One day I went and got a burger and then came back and parked in front of the smoke pit. As soon as I did, the other school's smokers started walking over with knives. chains, baseball bats, etc. I was like, yep, shut's about to go down. They had made threats and someone phoned the police to give them some info on what was happening and what might happen. The school resource officer walked out and resolved the issue. I just sat there eating my burger. LMAO, just chilling and eating a burger while the whole thing happens. I love it. It was such a good burger too. Dinner and a show. Where's a time machine so I could witness this event first and with a burger of my own. A fight broke out between 4 kids selling pot during lunch. The lunchroom erupted. Teacher started dragging kids out. A youngish band teacher picks up a kid to haul him out. Lady next to starts screaming, "Duck him up. Duck him up." It was her son, and she told him to go after a teacher. WTF. Something exactly like that happened at my school. What state was this in? The fight I saw was like 2 years ago. This was like 20 years ago. Sadly, I have many more stories. Damn. Yeah, lots of ducked up stuff happened at my school too. There was a period of about half a year where none of the boys' bathrooms were open because they kept getting vandalized. Not to mention kids have almost died in a couple of Michael butts because of their stupidity, and somehow they were my fault because I told them how outlets work and how to short them. Damn. We had a kid actually die once on Veterans Day. He committed suicide in the locker room while the rest of the school was outside in the gym. Quite literally whole school. Administration wanted to try something different and had all elementary, middle, and high all together in the high school gym. The dude's older brother was the 7th grade science teacher as well. I remember we had to shut lunch down early and they played an alarm. All because a mini riot started. Our school integrated an everyone eats at once lunch called One Lunch, and within the month we had issues. A guy slapped a girl who was talking shut, and then a bunch of her guy friends started to fight him. This escalated to the point where random people were getting tossed into the mix and our resource officers couldn't handle it. Smaller fights started to break out in the hallways until they shut down lunch. The alarm scared the shit out of us. We all thought there was a shooter or something. Edit. The way our lunch system worked was everyone, about 2,000 students, had an hour to get their lunch and they could go anywhere in the school to eat. Before that we had lunch periods during our third club of the day, where they would split it up in 4 small periods, and you had to stay in the cafeteria. I didn't realize there were schools where people didn't all eat lunch at once. Honestly. Is that normal in the US? I'm from Canada. At my school we had A lunch, B lunch, and C lunch. Spaced 30 minutes apart, one believe. Biggish school and not everyone would fit in the cafeteria at once. Do you guys have to eat lunch in the cafeteria? At my school, we all eat lunch at the same time, excluding now because pandemic, so all the bathrooms are free, so people will eat outside or in the room of a teacher they like or something. In a lot of US high school, especially in my experience northeast/cities, they are pretty strict about knowing where you are at all times. Not like grade school, where they'd lead you everywhere. But if your schedule says lunch, you better be in the cafeteria if they come looking for you. We only have about 20 minutes for lunch, the whole period. Get there, get in line, get food, sit down, eat. I think there were 4 lunch periods for us. Pretty large student population. Tiny old school building. Edit. Wandering the halls without a but during any period was a detention, unless you were already in more trouble. Unless you knew a teacher or two that you could use as an excuse. I had a few that would always back me up if I said I was doing something for them. Regardless of it, that was the truth or not. In 3rd grade I remember there was a girl who had anger issues because of some sort of mental problem. One day in class, she was really behind on work and seemed really stressed, muttering to herself. I don't remember what the teacher said, but this girl just ducking snapped. She just flipped her desk and grabbed the teacher by the throat and was like, "Now you listen to me," or something, and started going off. Everyone just sat there shocked. But looking back it's actually a pretty funny sight. A small chubby 3rd grader just scaring the shit out of a grown bud woman, lol. She ended up getting sent to a special school or something. It's kind of a shame because I talked to her in Unethical once and she was actually a really nice person. It was just clear that she had some issues and would snap sometimes. Never heard about her again. How short was your teacher if a 3rd grader can grab her by the neck? I saw her recently when I revisited the school pre-COVID. She's definitely below average female height, but not like ridiculously short either. But if I remember right, I'm pretty sure the 3rd grader was on her tiptoes. So I guess that was enough to grab her throat. She didn't just move. That kind of surprised me as well. How slow she was to react. I think she was just in shock and in such disbelief that she didn't know how to react at first. This was a small Catholic school and nothing crazy really happened much. She also wasn't expecting her to grab her throat. And it happened so fast. I remember seeing the teacher's face turn bright red and seeing this expression of shock/disbelief on her face for a second or two before she just pushed the student's hand away or something. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you want more videos, don't forget to like and subscribe. You are helping me a lot. Thanks again.